What up, everybody? It's Aaron here with Get Your Geek On with Robert and with our buddy RJ down here. That way, yeah. So we are here to talk Star Wars: The Bad Batch, and I'm not the Star Wars fan, so I'm gonna let them talk. I'm just here.
Well, yeah, I mean,
why not?
Welcome in, everybody. We're excited to bring back RJ of RJ's Nerdybrew for a half-season review of The Bad Batch. So we're halfway through The Bad Batch, and we thought now would be a good time to talk about it and get some of our thoughts so far. And yeah, I wanted to bring in RJ because I was like, I need another Star Wars expert with me, because Aaron's, he likes some of it. He doesn't like others, and actually that's where I want to start. So once we get through this, I think, Aaron, I've got some questions for you. But RJ, welcome back, brother.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be back. I love you guys. I love the show, and I just love being here, and especially being in the place to talk about Star Wars. I'm always for it.
Definitely.
I mean,
so
I'm just here.
As
I have, I'm wearing Spider-Man stuff. It begins with an S. Does that count?
No.
Oh. I tried.
But as we get into this review, obviously we are going to talk spoilers. So if you haven't seen the first 8 episodes of Bad Batch, we're going to get into it. So just be prepared. Watch the show if you haven't. We're hopefully we might get some people to watch the show if they haven't yet. But Aaron, I know my question to you, because I think RJ and I are on the same page. We'd seen all the Star Wars animation stuff leading up to this, like Clone Wars. We've seen a lot of those things. Obviously, the final season came out, with a big influence where the Bad Batch was created. And I told you several weeks ago, Aaron, I was like, hey, we should do a Bad Batch, we should talk about this show that's on right now. And you were like, what show? And I was like, all right,
he's not wrong.
Here's where you start, watch season 7, you get introduced to the Bad Batch and all that. So Aaron, did you do that?
So I did it differently because I was curious on something, because you told me to watch season 7, the first 4 episodes, I believe, with the first part, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then some of the other episodes throughout the Clone Wars. But I was curious. I won't lie, I binged the rest of it last night. I finished all of it up. But I actually watched just the Bad Batch first because I was curious, can the casual fan jump straight into this? Because if I watch all that stuff first, then I knew what was going to come up and what to expect. So I was like, how would it be if I have no knowledge really of the Clone War stuff and jump straight in?
Okay.
And not bad, actually.
There you go.
I'm going to say it that it's, you don't really need it. Like you said, though, there was some stuff I'm like, I knew of it because we talked about it before, like Rex and a few of the other people. So I knew some of that stuff coming out, but I did like the tie to Mandalorian. So I was kind of like, yeah, at least I watched Mandalorian.
There you go.
So I'm enjoying it, for not knowing any of the other stuff ahead of time.
Yeah, this show, I think even more so than Mandalorian, is really like there's connections to everything. There's, you get connections to the prequel trilogy with the cloning. You get connection to obviously the Clone Wars. We get a lot of different characters, a lot of new ones being brought in. And I want to talk. Obviously, I think we need to talk about a lot of the characters and the storylines. But just before we get into that, Aaron, you said you're enjoying it. RJ, how are you enjoying the first 8 episodes of the Bad Batch?
So all right, so I'm lukewarm on it. It's like I'm tolerating it so far. Because the first episode, that hour or that 80 minutes, however long it was amazing. I was like, it's starting off real well. And then the middle episodes, to me, probably episodes 2 to 5 was very lackluster. And I'll say that it picked up where the 2 sisters from season 7 showed up. I think that was a good callback, and that episode was exciting. But the previous episodes after episode 1, I really thought that it was the boring batch and not the Bad Batch. And I felt that closer to where they at now for the finale, showing Rex, it turned out to be a better outcome. So right now, I'm just sitting on the fence with it before I could start raving about it and say that, oh, this is great, additive to Star Wars. I don't feel that way right now. I just feel like it's adequate.
Yeah,
It's just
and
there.
I think I'm on the same page with you. I think Star Wars animation has this for me where it feels like what's great is really great. But it seems like it sometimes does, tell kind of a meandering story and not always, and it does feel like it's like, oh, this is a setup episode that's going to get paid off later. But I don't really like setup episodes. It's like, I understand that you need to establish certain things, but both with Clone Wars and with Rebels, you get those dips. And even, season 7, the arc in the middle with the Martez sisters was not like, I did not enjoy those 4 episodes really at all. I'm glad we got them back, and I liked their episode of this series, as you mentioned. But I feel like that's kind of standard for Star Wars animation for sure, is that it mixes exciting with kind of those, just world building episodes. And I think, I agree. I mean, episode 2, I think, is the one where we go see Cut, the deserter clone from, right. Back, he was in like one episode of the Clone Wars series. And that episode, it was like, okay, so we're establishing that the world of the Empire is different. And, like I understood what we were doing, but it definitely, was a little bit slower. And I like all of the pieces that we're bringing in. I mean, Cad Bane, the return of Cad Bane. I'm so excited.
Amazing. Yeah. I knew you was going to love that. I got blown away about that. I was like, I gotta tell Robert, but you saw it, so it turned out great. Yeah,
Cad Bane's back. He's like my favorite character from the Clone Wars series. So to bring him back, it's super exciting. So I like where it's going, but I agree with you. The beginning of this, the first episode was really great. Seeing Order 66, and then kind of the immediate aftermath of that. Where we've gotten to by the end of this 8-episode arc, I've really liked, but I agree. The middle portion didn't really, blow me away. What about you, Aaron? Where are you at?
I mean, again, I guess because I don't come from that lore. I never watched all the Clone Wars stuff, so I didn't get all of the stuff that you guys got. I could see what you mean by it being slow, but I think I've said this to Robert several times. I'm liking that it's not about the Skywalkers, and I'm always curious, what's going on in the rest of the universe? Oh, well, here you're getting like, I like the comment. The clones were looking for names all this time, but now people are wanting numbers. And I like that comment. I mean, that's a good point, because they are just numbers. So stuff like that I liked, because it's setting up the entire universe now, not just here's what's happening to Luke, here's what's happening to Leia, here's what's happening to Kylo Ren and all the other people. Like, what's going on these edge worlds? And I've said that several times, that I like that kind of stuff. So that kind of keeps me interested in it. And again, I get what you all mean by episode 2, because it was kind of like, why are we here? I really thought that, like, you're just trying to tell me that these guys have sympathy for this child finally. And that's all they were doing. Like, oh, you know what? Like, and it felt like every other story, like anyone who gets a kid in a storyline who doesn't want it, it's because it's not theirs. It's just some like, oh, I've been alone all this time, I have a kid now. They're like, oh, here, you'll be better with this family. Like, here you go. And then the kid comes back because it's like, no, I should stay with you. It was very like cut and dry. It was like, that's how it's always written. And I feel they got away from that. Like, they shouldn't have done that. They should have just done something different with these guys. So I feel like that was a missed opportunity maybe, but at the same time, like, I'm enjoying it. I'm liking where it's going. And you know me, I like the droids. So the fact that we're getting some of the droid stuff going around still, I like that. I think that the characters are done well so far from what I'm understanding about each one of them. I do like that the inhibitor chip's still in them. And you see, I think starting with like episode 3 or 4, the big brawly one, I can't think of his name.
Wrecker,
he's getting like those migraines. They're coming on. And I like that. It's like, so we're touching on it, that there's chips are still there. And then it's what, episode 6 or 7, they remove his, I think, right? 6?
Yeah.
Yes, I think it was episode 7. They did remove all of them. His was the only one they showed, but then there's dialogue that they've all gotten him out, which I think is kind of the major. There's 3 major storylines, I guess, that I would say is going on. There's Order 66 and what that does to the clone army, and and specifically the Bad Batch. There's the inhibitor chip storyline of what's going on there and how that's affected Crosshair, and then eventually Wrecker and the rest of the Bad Batch. And then, of course, the the other one is what's going on with Omega. Why is she so unique? Why is she so important to the Kaminoans? I think that's the three major storylines. And I think for me, of those three storylines, the one that is most interesting is that first one, which is like the Order 66, and then the Empire, and how that's different than the Republic, and how they're coming in and basically being like, they want to decommission the clone army. They want to, cut that out. They're just, and we know by the time we get to A New Hope, clones are not in use anymore. So this is a time period that hasn't been explored a lot in Star Wars canon. Right. What happened between the Clone Wars and, a time, with A New Hope. And so I'm really enjoying that. And I wish we were getting more of that. I understand the show is about the Bad Batch, but I do wish we were getting a little bit more of how, how the Empire is really kind of making these decisions and moving forward. We saw a little bit of that with Tarkin and with the other admiral. I can't remember his name. And so it's been interesting to me, and I wish we were getting a little bit more of that.
Yeah, I'm having a thought about their phasing out of the clones with the Kaminoans, because they're discussing, Tarkin was saying it's cost effective and it's better to get recruits. So I'm thinking maybe they want to cut costs so they could have funds for the Death Star. So that's kind of just a theory that I'm
That would make sense. That would make perfect sense. But here's something, and I know we can get there later, but the other admiral's talking about enlisting people. They'll be more loyal, all this blah blah blah. And then of course we see, I think it's episode 5 where Crosshair kills one of them for disobeying the order. And then I think of, so what is it? Not the sequels with Kylo Ren, those 3 movies. They don't seem to be enlisting people anymore. They seem to literally be capturing them and throwing them in the military. Did they ever explain that part, or is that just something I haven't touched on yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we get commentary in the sequel trilogy, that they basically like conscripting children and training them from the time they're children to be in this, and it's not willingly. At this point in the storyline, it does seem to be they're looking for volunteers to join the Empire. And I mean, how similar you want to say that is to armed forces here in on Earth, where it's like, hey, join, you get 3 square meals a day, we'll pay for your education, all bonus. That stuff. I mean, it's kind of like the post-war turmoil of the galaxy, and they're saying, hey, come join us, you get your stability, you get all that stuff. So yeah, it's an interesting point, but it does seem at some point, and we don't know exactly when, that changes. It seems to be after the original trilogy, again in that time period between the fall of the second Death Star and when the First Order arises. But I don't know. There's a lot of like where we haven't explained in Star Wars, and especially when it comes to the sequel trilogy, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that they just do, and they're like, it just happened.
Okay, I was just curious because I was wondering if they ever touched on that or not. Because I'm like, well, I have the sequels are more in my mind than anything, and I'm like, well, I remember Finn was kind of like, it looked like he was almost enslaved into it, or like you said, born as children, raised into it. And this guy's like, no, if we enlist people, they'll willingly help us, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, wait, now I'm confused. What's going on here? Yeah,
the Empire and the First Order are different.
Okay,
that's all I can tell you.
They're 2 different. 2 different government factions. The First Order grew out of the Empire after the defeat of in Return of the Jedi. They took off and went into the unknown regions. So what we see in The Mandalorian is the last fractions of the Empire trying to hold on or establish their government powers. And then the First Order came out of that years later, and then they come back when we see them in the sequels, established as the First Order. And then it's also explained that the First Order was a plan B for the Emperor if everything went to kaput like it did. That
but the third Death Star
in their plan. Yeah.
It's then we'll have the First Order, and then we'll have the Final Order. It just okay, like
I got off track already. That was quick.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get back to the Bad Batch. So, the storyline, I mean, just the way the show kicks off we get the return of Caleb Doom, who, Aaron, I know you don't know who that character is, but he's our Jedi Padawan, who is the main character of Star Wars Rebels, or one of the main characters. And we get like 12-year-old Caleb Doom voiced by 45-year-old Freddie Prinze Jr.
Junior, yeah, it was crazy. Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting choice. It was like, that voice really works for grown up, but it's like, man,
look,
this kid
hit
hit puberty
at a
early.
young age, all right? It was like 11 when he hit puberty.
Yeah, super
right.
Yeah. But the one thing that I love about that opening, first of all, I love that it tied to Rebels. I think Rebels is a great sequel to the Clone Wars. Yeah. And then having that episode, Kanan also had his own comic. So in that comic, it showed that event. They didn't add the Bad Batch in his comic, but just for him knowing his or remembering or referencing the fall and his events in Order 66, it was just a nice callback to see that how the episode started off. And then another thing that was crazy was to see the Bad Batch, other than Crosshairs, that they weren't affected by it and they were lost, to be like, what is going on?
It's interesting to see that. I actually like that part. They're like, what's up, everybody? Why is everyone acting all strange? All right.
Yeah, I love that they're kind of running away, and then I mean they see that something is different. They're on their they're going on a mission. They see that something is different. And they like turn around and they see all these clones like attacking the Jedi, and they're like, what the heck is happening? And then you get Crosshair being like, good soldiers follow orders, and they're like, and I love Hunter kind of trying to keep Crosshair from killing Caleb, and all the different conflict that introduces. And we see once they get back to Camino, and they've always been these outsiders. The Bad Batch has always been this team of outsiders, and now they're even more removed from the rest of the clones, because the rest of the clones have just completely changed. I mean, their demeanor, the way everything about them is just totally different than we've seen before, and they're having to find a new way to navigate that.
They're very much more militaristic, very much more robotic. After Order 66, or since it's got initiated, they're not as even though they're bred to be soldiers, they have a lack of personality now.
Right.
After it being enacted.
Now they feel like they truly are just duplicates of each other. Where if they would say the same thing if you ask them the same question. Whereas in the Clone Wars, we see they all have different personalities. They all, really their experiences shape them, and they react differently, even if they all have the same like tactical type of training. They are all distinct personalities. And that's definitely, it seems like that portion is part of the inhibitor chip. It's really removed a lot of that. So I thought that was interesting. And, we get introduced to Omega, or Omega, depending on who's introducing her. And I just like, it's really interesting to me, just the origin of that name, which means the last. Like, so she's, in that sense, it's like, okay, is she the perfect clone that they've created, this last clone? Is she meant to be the first in a new series, for whatever the Kaminoans are trying to do, which is that why she's so important? Have they cracked the code of being able to clone with force sensitivity? We haven't seen really any hints toward that, but we know that comes up in Mandalorian, where they're trying to get Grogu because they're trying to clone a force sensitive individual. So I'm just wondering, like, where is this all going to tie in, and if that's a storyline we're going to touch on.
Well, they comment, and this is something I didn't get. They're commenting that the DNA is breaking down of Jango Fett, right? What is right? So are they not going to be? So Omega's not a clone of Jango Fett, right?
I don't know. I mean, we know. So they needed they explain in Attack of the Clones that they need Jango was like living there because they need continuous access to him in order to keep making clones. And then at the end of that movie, he dies. So they had what they had on hand, but they're not able to get any more. Although, I mean, I guess maybe they could just clone from a clone. I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
But we don't know exactly what material they used to make Omega. Obviously, she's female, which none of the other clones have been. So is she a mix? Is there maybe a little bit of Nala Se? Maybe she's got some Camino in her. I mean, we don't really know exactly what they've used to create Omega. But I think that, obviously the assumption is that she is a clone. And even I think early in the episodes, they talk about that they have 5 altered clones, and we would look at it and go, oh, there's 5 members of the Bad Batch. Well, Echo was not one of those. They're really talking about the 4 original Bad Batch members and her. Yeah. She's the 5th one that has the unique modifications or whatever that might be.
Interesting. And the thing about Omega, I would say that for me, trying to picture the gun on the wall, that she is force sensitive for 2 reasons. One, her connection or to be empathetic to Crosshairs when they had that conversation in the brig. She felt very intuitive and analytical in the situation of his intentions.
Yep.
While everybody else was just like trying to get out. They weren't really concerned about what he was feeling or thinking. And she seemed to be able to be in tune to that. And then not only that, she is very, she picks up on things very quickly. So those are kind of hints that I feel like her force abilities will manifest at some point.
Yeah.
And it's just latent, and they're just building up to it to be revealed at some point. But that's just me reading into things.
No, I
agree.
Yeah. I agree, because I think we've seen, whether it be her connection with people like Crosshair or Wrecker, when his inhibitor chip is changing, we've seen that she's got that ability to connect with people. But we also see she picks up skills pretty quickly. I mean, we see in that first episode when she like shoots the blaster and she's like, I've never shot a blaster before. And you're like, okay, that's a little bit like Luke Skywalker, blowing up at the Death Star, like when you're in tune in that moment. And we also see, again, very intuitive, like when the ship's broken down and they need that part, and that creature has it, and she goes down there and she, figures out, okay, I don't need to attack. I need to, distract him. And what can I distract him with? My flashlight. Okay, here we go. Or even when they're rescuing the Rancor, when she's trying to free the Bad Batch and she's like, this is the plan, is to get their equipment to them. And then halfway through the plan, she goes, actually, I think maybe if I just free the Rancor. And so it's like she's in touch with her surroundings. She's really intuitive about finding a different solution maybe than what was originally intended. So I do think that does speak that there's something going on. Is she, in what is her enhancement? We don't know exactly, whether it's force sensitivity or maybe it's just a mixture maybe of all of these other things, where she's got, Hunter's tracking ability, she's got Crosshair's ability to be a sniper. Maybe she's really, techie. I mean, so maybe she's a mix of everything, or it could be the force sensitivity. I mean, they haven't explained it yet. Obviously, I think we're going to get it based on where this 8-episode arc kind of ends. But it's been really interesting to see. I will say that I'm not always a big fan of the, kid tagging along with adults or adults. And so this has been, she's not my favorite character. Let me just put it that way. Like sometimes I really like Omega, but it's been, sometimes the episodes that focus on her are a little bit more of a struggle for me. I think that's why I liked some of the early episode, which is really about our group of soldiers. And then the latter episodes have really been about them too. And so, yeah, I think I'm hoping that now that, she's been captured and they're on the run, we're going to spend a lot more time with the Bad Batch. And I have a feeling I'm going to enjoy that more.
So with the Bad Batch, I stated it on my channel that I did not like I didn't say I didn't like it, but I wasn't attached to them in the first episode in their introductory, storyline.
Yeah.
I just felt like, oh, that's neat, and we're back to Star Wars. But
Yeah.
I didn't feel like this was an amazing episode when they premiered. And then in this, as getting to know them more, I enjoy Omega and Wrecker's relationship. Um, they're very much like brother and sister, uh, and how they play with one another. But the character that is actually standing out for me, and he's like a young older teenager trying to figure it out, being thrown out the house, is Hunter, because he's like, he's displaced. He's got this responsibility of his crew, and he's got this little girl here, and he knows how to be a soldier, but being part of this bigger world and it's not structured of the military, he's like, oh my goodness. And I'm just really liking his character development that they're showing in the show right now. I'm really liking Hunter. He's growing on me, but as a crew all together, like the aspects I like, but I'm not sold completely on them just yet. But this last episode reminded me of The Empire Strikes Back, how it ended. So like they lost the girl, they're being overwhelmed, and then it just reminded me of the Republic Commando, when we got to see the first person what he seen in his helmet. It
Yeah,
was
that was cool.
I loved it.
Yeah. Real quick, so who was that? Bounty hunter's been in other stuff too, right? The one who took Omega.
Yeah, that's Cad Bane.
Okay.
And he's he's had a lot of arcs in the Clone Wars. Is where we've seen him. And again, he's awesome. Got to go back and watch some of that. But one of the things that stood out to me as you were talking about that, RJ, is that I really loved the dynamic that we've gotten now with Echo and Hunter, kind of, like having opposite ends of perspectives on what they should be doing. Because the team, once they escape Camino, they are like, what are we supposed to do? Where are we supposed to go? How, and so they're trying to find their way. And meanwhile, they've got a target on their back because they've got Omega with them. And obviously, Crosshair wants to get them. The Empire wants to get, eliminate the Bad Batch, and the Kaminoans want to get Omega. So they've got, from both sides, they're getting attacked, and they're just trying to figure out what to do. And you've got, when Rex comes into the picture, Echo used to, be part of his squad. So he's got that relationship with Rex, and Rex is like, hey, we can fight the Empire, and, come join me. And Hunter's like, I don't know about this. And I love that Echo is like, why aren't we doing that? That's what we're supposed to do. We're soldiers. We should be fighting, for the good thing. And you've got Hunter offering the other perspective, which is like, that world is gone. And we're not, we can't just plug ourselves back into another war, on top of the fact that we've got, this little kid with us that we need to look out for. So I've just really been loving their dynamic. I think that's really been working for me. The one character of the Bad Batch, of our main crew, that I feel has really been underserved so far is Tech. I feel like I haven't really, like, okay, he's got his personality trait. We know what it is, but I'm just like, am I supposed to care about him? Like, I don't really at this point.
But that's what the problem is too, when you have a squad like this, kind of like Firefly almost had that too. It's hard to tell everybody's story. You want to tell everybody, but there's always that one that stands out. There's always gonna be the one fan favorite, that whether it's Hunter, Wrecker, whoever. So the other ones kind of start, getting off that path, and you start forgetting about them almost. And that's what sucks with squad kind of shows like this. But
it can,
I like it. I mean, I do like the ties, because the Rancor is actually the one that is that the one that Luke fights, right?
It's not.
No.
Yeah.
Officially, it's not. Officially, it's not. They have multiple Rancors apparently that Jabba had.
So it may not. It's not the same.
That's not the one that Luke fights and kills, according to canon, because the name that they give it is not the same one as the name that. It's a whole thing. I thought it was too, and then I read an article and it was like no, and I'm like, all right. It's like, I don't know why you didn't just make it the same one.
That's what I thought they were leading with. I'm like, oh, that's cool. So I got Jabba. I'm like, okay, so I know some of that because I've seen the originals, and I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah. Now I'm sad.
Well, maybe that one survived. unlike the one that Luke killed.
Luke, you're not just murdering things. All right.
Hey, kill or be killed. And,
exactly.
So I mean, I don't know. I mean, we've talked a lot about the show. I mean, there's a lot of legacy characters that show back up, and Aaron, I know you probably don't have a lot of familiarity with them, but Fennec Shand shown back up, so she's in Mandalorian.
I know that
so that's cool.
That one.
But I mean, we got Saw Gerrera showing back up. Obviously, we've already talked about Cad Bane and Rex, Cut, the Martez sisters. We've got the Kaminoans, Lama Su and Nala Se. Caleb Doom, obviously we talked about, and then we do get some new characters, like Sid is a new character, so that's been interesting to see. So when we're talking about the legacy characters, are there any more you're looking forward to showing back up, RJ? I mean, are you like I hope Boba Fett shows up in this series? Like, is there anyone else that you're like, ooh, I hope they pull in this character?
No, I'm actually along for the ride, and it would be more expected for Boba to show up, especially if you got Cad Bane showing up, and then a set of clones that are based off of his father, and he has his own dynamic of emotions, hating clones, and it's just a lot of drama, that in regards to Boba Fett, that it needs to be touched on if they already brought up Cad Bane. And with Cad Bane, we got to find out who his employer is.
I mean, I'm assuming it's the Kaminoans that you kind of get set up that they're the ones that hired Fennec Shand. They also, it seems like, hired Cad Bane. They have a history, obviously, with bounty hunters. I mean, Jango Fett was a bounty hunter, and he was their template for all the clones. So clearly, it seems like that's that's going to be touched on. But I think we're going to find out. I mean, Cad Bane, when Hunter asks who hired you, that's confidential. So I assume it's the Kaminoans, but maybe they'll throw a curveball at us. Maybe it's someone completely different.
But if it's not Boba, but I just feel like that's just a logical place to go for Boba. If anybody, I would like to see Obi-Wan show up. I like to see Obi-Wan show up for whatever reason.
Interesting. I mean, I love Obi-Wan, and obviously he is alive during this time period, so that could be interesting. But I don't know. I kind of like the fact that we're not getting really any Force users at all in this series, which is the first Star Wars property that really doesn't have any Force in it. The Mandalorian doesn't have a lot, because it's really just Grogu, and that only shows up every once in a while. And then obviously Ahsoka gets introduced late in season 2. But yeah, I mean, outside of that first episode where we see Order 66, we haven't seen any Force users. And so I've been enjoying that. It's again, there's not going to be Force users in every Star Wars story. And so being able to, kind of live in this world, similar to something like Rogue One or even the Solo movie, like where we're not seeing a bunch of Force users. I've been enjoying that.
I like the Old West kind of feel. And I think that last episode kind of sold that, where you have like the turn 10 paces and shoot kind of feel to it. I love those kind of things. And I think Star Wars can do it well. And that's what they did well in Mandalorian. In that one episode, I'm like, I like this Western feel. Like, okay, who's going to draw first? And I love that feel. And I think it fits for Star Wars too. And that showdown was phenomenal. And I love, we've been establishing that these characters in the Bad Batch are really great at their jobs. They know what Hunter, is we saw him face off against Fennec Shand, and, certainly at least, draw her to a standstill kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, he comes up against Cad Bane, and we've already established just in this, without any history, Aaron, you come across a character who clearly, I mean, he's wiped out all this entire squad. Yeah. And then you see a showdown with him and Hunter. Like, to me, I feel like that pretty well establishes how BA this character is. It was. And it also establishes the Star Wars armor for these troopers. It only works randomly. Hunter took a hit to the chest and lived. But everyone else took hits in the chest, they die. It's like, I don't get the armor still. I don't understand it.
The Bad Batch has better armor than the rest of it.
It's reinforced. More plastic in that one spot.
with all that said, we've talked, I think, mostly through the series. We've talked about what we liked, what we didn't like, characters that we like. So let's talk about the back half of the season now. Now, we don't know, is this going to be an ongoing series? Is this going to be just these 16 episodes? At some point, I mean, when you're talking in the Star Wars universe and we're looking at this time period, you know, we get to A New Hope and we get to the Rebellion, and we don't see any of these characters. We don't see an Omega. We don't see the Bad Batch. So does that mean they're not there? Does that mean they're all dead? Does it mean they're off somewhere else? We don't know. I mean, there's different explanations they've given for different things. Obviously, in like Rebels, you know, Ezra Bridger, who was like one of the main characters of that show and is a Force user, and you'd be like, well, he'd be around. And they just sent him off into the unknown region.
Just stay in the unknown. You're fine.
So there's ways to, you know, have these characters survive. But I guess that's my question. One of my big questions is, will, you know, what's going to happen to the Bad Batch and to Omega and to Crosshair? Will Crosshair come back? Will his inhibitor chip get removed, or is he going to continue to be, you know, this guy for the Empire? So I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts on where this show is going to lead next?
You got any thoughts, Aaron?
Yeah, I'll get to mine real quick because mine's gonna be short. They all die. Done. Everybody dead.
The Rogue One ending, huh?
Right, like the world just blows up, everybody dies. But I kind of agree. Like, I don't know if they're gonna do more because again, none of them are gonna come out later, and it kind of comes to that whole thing that we've talked about before with like, you know, plot shield. Like, oh, this character's gonna be here, so you know they can't get hurt because they're gonna be here. We never see him again. But the flip side of all that, they're not. Maybe they're just never involved with the Skywalkers. So that's why we never see them, because it's all about Luke and Leia, and then everybody else. Well, they're doing their stuff all the way over here still. So I don't know. I think it'd be interesting if they do tie it somehow, but if they all died, I would be okay with it too. Like, all right, bye.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if anything, it'll probably be a blaze of glory kind of situation. Rogue One ending, where for the greater good of the rebellion that they all bite the dust. And I'm not opposed to that. But you know, since Disney is still growing out their canon, and we know that there's the time period of, you know, young Luke is going to rebuild the Jedi Order at some point before it gets destroyed again. That you know, Omega might have a hand in being part of that order, or even helping Luke gathering new younglings, and even meeting Ahsoka. So, you know, with the promotional art and Inside Rebels, it was the world between worlds. So there's many things that can happen for these characters, but for them not to move forward and they just have their one isolated story, I'm very comfortable with just their story being told. It doesn't have to be a legacy furthering on to, you know, the rest of Star Wars, but long as it's impactful for what they're trying to say, that I'm fine with.
I know, Robert, you never played this game really, but I don't know about you, RJ. Did you ever play Halo Reach?
I did. That was the only one I did play.
Okay.
It's crazy.
So when I say this comment, you'll know the very last mission of Halo Reach. Would that be okay for an ending with these guys for you, where it's like infinite number of Covenant and you just keep shooting them until you die finally? Would that be an okay ending for this series, you think?
Yeah.
So Robert, just sketch you up. Yeah.
Sure.
Like, just to let you know, Robert, and anyone else knows this, Halo Reach at the very end, your character dies because the planet's going to blow up. And the last mission is literally your death mission. You're sitting there with a limited amount of ammo, fighting off wave after wave after wave of Covenant until eventually you're overrun and get killed.
Yeah. I'm concerned for the Bad Batch and their ability to survive. And mainly because if you look at a show like Rebels, we get Rex, we get Ahsoka, we get some of these characters that, you know, have been introduced in some of these things, and you know, they're still around when the rebellion's starting. And we don't have any of these characters. We don't have Omega, we don't have Hunter, we don't have Wrecker. I mean, Rex is there with a couple other clones. It's not any of these guys. And so I'm concerned I don't think they're going to kill off the whole team. It feels like there might be one or two of them that survive, and I don't think they're going to kill off Omega. That seems like that would be pretty dark even for Star Wars to like introduce a little kid and then kill him off.
I mean, come on, Anakin.
So
just put Anakin in front of him.
I have a feeling.
Yeah,
that's true.
We got Anakin.
But we didn't know any of those younglings. We didn't spend an entire season with them. But I'm really interested. I mean, I feel like, these characters, it does feel like Wrecker and Hunter have the strongest emotional connections to Omega. And so you would think that at least one of them would, sacrifice maybe themselves, for Omega. And, whether or not, we see the other characters, do something similar. I don't know. I mean, I think we've showcased the abilities of the Bad Batchers, except for I feel like we haven't gotten a huge showcase of Hunter. And so it seems like that's where we're going now, in terms of his actual abilities, because he's going to have to track down and find Omega, and hopefully save her. And whether we see confrontations with Cad Bane, is Fennec Shand, historically, like you send 10 bounty hunters after the same bounty, they're going to come in conflict with one another because only one of them gets the payoff. So is Fennec Shand going to attack Cad Bane to try and get Omega so that she can bring her back? Like at the end of the day, I think we're going to get a lot more of these pieces moving together. We do know that obviously Fennec is going to survive. We don't know, Cad Bane had an unfinished arc in Clone Wars where the speculation was that he might have died. He might have died in a duel with Boba Fett. Whether or not we see that actually happen in this show, I don't know. But I'm really looking forward to what's going to happen, but I am definitely worried about some members of the Bad Batch. And I feel like this is going to be contained. We're going to get 16 episodes. I don't think it's going to be an ongoing series. I don't think we're going to get anything more. I'd be okay with it if we did, but I think this is going to be it. I don't know. What do you think, RJ?
Nah, I think they're gonna milk this cow. It's Disney Power. They're gonna keep this going. Even with ratings and just the fact that they got the IP. I don't know if it's a hit or not. I mean, I don't have my ear close to the Star Wars community like that. I just have my own fandom. So for right now, I mean, see, I'm lukewarm on it. So it'd be okay, and I'll be satisfied if it was just one season, if it was contained. But knowing how it goes and how they've been operating with their animated series, even Resistance, which didn't get a lot of play, it still made season 2. So I don't know. I think they're going to keep it going as much as they can. But as far as seeing stuff from the back half of the season, I would just like to see, maybe Boba Fett showing up. And if not Boba Fett showing up, I would like a strong arc of everything being revealed that they planted seeds for already.
Yeah, definitely finding out more about Omega, more about what makes her special and unique, and why the Kaminoans are so after her. And then I'm just really interested. I mean, I thought that the conflict in episode 8 of Crosshair coming back in contact with the Bad Batch, where he was using he's like, I know what tactics you're going to use, and he's using that against them. I thought that was great, and I love bringing them back in conflict, and I'm really looking forward to whatever that resolution is going to be, whether one of them is going to have to kill him or he's going to kill one of them, whether, I think what could be really interesting is like having him kill a member of the Bad Batch and then have his inhibitor chip removed, and having to live with maybe that guilt, of, you know, having killed off one of the members. Would he be reaccepted into the squad? How would they move forward from that? Like, I think that could be really interesting to play in. If this, I don't think there's enough time in these 8 episodes to tell that arc, as well as everything going on with Omega. So if it is a continuation, I think that could be a really interesting story to continue to follow.
It would have to be Wrecker, though. He would have to kill him, because that would tie the connection to Omega, who's fond of Wrecker. So now you kill Wrecker. Now that not only is the team against him, you have Omega against him now too. Because if he kills anyone else, she might be okay. Not okay, but it'd be okay a little bit more. She might be more accepting, maybe. But if you kill Wrecker, she's gonna be like, "You just killed my brother." Yeah, it's like, "Oh, you killed him. Oh, okay. Well, I didn't like him that much anyway." But you kill like my big brother. Well, yeah. Now it's like personal, you know. So that would be a cool storyline, though. But
I mean, Hunter's the father figure, so either one of them for sure.
I don't think it'd kill
you got
Hunter.
The brother and the father.
Yeah, I don't think it would kill Hunter. I really don't.
You know, my thoughts is this: if it comes with the inhibitor, all right. So we just saw that he got horribly burned. He got horribly, disfigured. And with him being disfigured and knowing his skills, I think that he's gonna have some type of resentment. And even if they were to remove the chip, I still feel like he would have that chip on his shoulder to
oh God.
I'm a dad. What do you expect? Dad jokes all around. But I just feel like he would be very much angry, just having that bitterness about himself of like, they disfigured me, they messed up my skills, and I blame them for deserting me, deserting my purpose, deserting the Empire. And even if he gets the chip removed, I could still see him taking on that aspect of just anger and responsibility that he wants to put the blame on them. I could see that for sure.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's the whole carry through. Just to carry through to be the antagonist.
Yeah. Well, what was it? There's another series that kind of does it. They thought they were being controlled. He's like, no, I just want to do this now. And I can't remember what series it is, but I could see something like that. Like, yeah, I did this because I was the chipped, but now it's like, no, now it's personal. Like you said, like you set me on fire.
Right,
like me and Anakin have fire therapy together, But I mean, Piccolo therapist.
Oh man,
they know enough just to have random jokes.
Well, I'm just gonna, based on Anakin / Darth Vader, his arc, his therapist sucks. He does not dial down those anger issues. Let me just put it that way.
Well, he's hired by the Empire, so what do you expect?
There you go. Yeah. All right. Well, do you guys have any more thoughts to talk about this first half of season of Bad Batch, or should we wrap it up?
I do not. I think you guys covered everything. Really,
I'm okay.
All right. Well, obviously I think we'll be back to talk about the end of the season. So after the next 8 episodes, we'll circle back and we'll give our thoughts on how the rest of the show wrapped up. But I just want to take a moment to once again thank RJ for joining Get Your Geek on. It's always a joy to have you on, man. I'm so happy to be able to talk stuff with you. So tell everybody where they can find you and what you're doing over there at the Nerdybrew.
Okay, so you can find me at the Nerdybrew. The word is together, the Nerdybrew. On YouTube, we talk TV, movies, and everything in between, all while drinking a cup of coffee. And we do reactions over there as well. And that's where you can find me. And sometimes I have a co-host, sometimes I don't. At Couch God. But we're keeping the channel alive, so you can find us there at the Nerdybrew.
Go look him up, guys, and check out his channel. And speaking of reviews, don't forget, we also have our Loki review that me and Robert have been doing. So go check that out on official GYGO, youtube.com/official GYGO. And I think on that note, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for chilling with us. Let us know down in the comments below what you think of the Bad Batch, what episodes you liked. I'm curious on that. And if you're the casual fan like me, what you thought of it. Because again, I like it. These guys are the experts, but I still enjoy it. So let us know down below. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification button. And y'all have a great day and stay geeky, guys.
Bye.
Peace.